Chapter 3. Graph. The sister is our weak link. He really loves her. I know. She can undo it all from the start. He won't want to leave her. So what are you going to do? Persuade him that he wants to come with us more than he wants to stay with her. How will you do that? I'll lie to him. And if that doesn't work, then I'll tell the truth. We're allowed to do that in emergencies. We can't plan for everything, you know. Ender wasn't very hungry during breakfast. He kept wondering what it would be like at school. Facing Stilson after yesterday's fight, what Stilson's friends would do. Probably nothing, but he couldn't be sure. He didn't want to go. "You're not eating, Andrew," his mother said. Peter came into the room. "Morning, Ender. Thanks for leaving your slimy washcloth in the middle of the shower." "Just for you," Ender murmured. "Andrew, you have to eat." Ender held out his wrists, a gesture that said, "So feed it to me through a needle." "Very funny," Mother said. "I try to be concerned, but it makes no difference to my genius children." "It was all your genes that made us geniuses, Mom," said Peter. "We sure didn't get any from Dad." "I heard that," Father said, not looking up from the news that was being displayed on the table while he ate. "It would have been wasted if you hadn't." The table beeped. Someone was at the door. "Who is it?" Mother asked. Father thumbed a key and a man appeared on his video. He was wearing the only military uniform that meant anything anymore, the IF, the International Fleet. "I thought it was over," said Father. Peter said nothing, just poured milk over his cereal, and Ender thought, maybe I won't have to go to school today after all. Father coated the door open and got up from the table. "I'll see to it," he said. "Stay and eat." They stayed, but they didn't eat. A few moments later, Father came back into the room and beckoned to Mother. "You're in deep poo," said Peter. "They found out what you did to that kid at school, and now they're going to make you do time out in the belt." "I'm only 6, moron. I'm a juvenile." "You're a third turd. You've got no rights." Valentine came in, her hair in a sleepy halo around her face. "Where's Mom and Dad? I'm too sick to go to school." "Another oral exam, huh?" Peter said. "Shut up, Peter," said Valentine. "You should relax and enjoy it," said Peter. "It could be worse." "I don't know how." "It could be an anal exam." "Hyuk, hyuk," Valentine said. "Where are Mother and Father?" "Talking to a guy from the IF." Instinctively she looked at Ender. After all, for years they had expected someone to come and tell them that Ender had passed, that Ender was needed. "That's right, look at him," Peter said. "But it might be me, you know. They might have realized I was the best of the lot after all." Peter's feelings were hurt, so he was being a snot as usual. The door opened. "Ender," said Father, "you better come in here." "Sorry, Peter," Valentine taunted. Father glowered. "Children, this is no laughing matter." Ender followed Father into the parlor. The IF officer rose to his feet when they entered, but he did not extend a hand to Ender. Mother was twisting her wedding band on her finger. "Andrew," she said, "I never thought you were the kind to get in a fight." "The Stilson boy's in the hospital," Father said. "You really did a number on him. With your shoe, Ender. That wasn't exactly fair." Ender shook his head. He had expected someone from the school to come about Stilson, not an officer of the fleet. This was more serious than he had thought, and yet he couldn't think what else he could have done. "Do you have an explanation for your behavior, young man?" asked the officer. Ender shook his head again. He didn't know what to say, and he was afraid to reveal himself to be any more monstrous than his actions had made him out to be. "I'll take it, whatever the punishment is," he thought. "Let's get it over with." We're willing to consider extenuating circumstances," the officer said, "but I must tell you it doesn't look good. Kicking him in the groin, kicking him repeatedly in the face and body when he was down, it sounds like you really enjoyed it." "I didn't," Ender whispered. "Then why did you do it?" "He had his gang there," Ender said. "So? This excuses anything?" "No." "Tell me why you kept kicking him. You had already won." "Knocking him down was the first fight. I wanted to win all the next ones, too, so they'd leave me alone. Ender couldn't help it. He was too afraid, too ashamed of his own acts. Though he tried not to, he cried again. Ender did not like to cry and rarely did. Now, in less than a day, he had done it 3 times, and each time was worse. To cry in front of his mother and father and this military man, that was shameful. "You took away the monitor," Ender said. "I had to take care of myself, didn't I?" "Ender, you should have asked a grown-up for help," Father began, but the officer stood up and stepped across the room to Ender. He held out his hand. "My name is Graff, Ender. Colonel Hiram Graff. I'm Director of Primary Training at Battle School in the Belt. I've come to invite you to enter the school." "After all, but the monitor." "The final step in your testing was to see what would happen when the monitor came off. We don't always do it that way, but in your case—" "And he passed?" Mother was incredulous. "Putting the Stilson boy in the hospital? What would you have done if Andrew had killed him? Given him a medal?" It isn't what he did, Mrs. Wiggin. It's why, Colonel Graff. It's why." Colonel Graff handed her a folder full of papers. "Here are the requisitions. Your son has been cleared by the IF Selective Service. Of course, we already have your consent, granted in writing at the time conception was confirmed, or he could not have been born. He has been ours from then if he qualified." Father's voice was trembling as he spoke. "It's not very kind of you to let us think you didn't want him and then take him after all." "And this charade about the Stilson boy," Mother said. "It wasn't a charade, Mrs. Wiggin, until we knew what Ender's motivation was. We couldn't be sure he wasn't another. We had to know what the action meant, or at least what Ender believed that it meant." "Must you call him that stupid nickname?" Mother began to cry. "That's the name he calls himself." "What are you going to do, Colonel Graff?" Father asked. "Walk out the door with him now?" "That depends," said Graff. "On what?" "On whether Ender wants to come." Mother's weeping turned to bitter laughter. "Oh, so it's voluntary after all! How sweet!" "For the 2 of you, the choice was made when Ender was conceived, but for Ender the choice has not been made at all. Conscripts make good cannon fodder, but for officers, we need volunteers." "Officers?" asked Ender. At the sound of his voice, the others fell silent. "Yes," said Graff. "Battle School is for training future starship captains and commodores of flotillas and admirals of the fleet." "Let's not have any deception here," Father said angrily. "How many of the boys at Battle School actually end up on command ships?" "Unfortunately, Mr. Wiggin, that is classified information. But I can say that none of our boys who makes it through the first year has ever failed to receive a commission as an officer. And none has retired from a position of lower rank than Chief Executive Officer of an interplanetary vessel. Even the domestic defense forces within our own solar system, there's honor to be had." "How many make it through the first year?" Ender asked. "All who want to," said Graff. Ender almost said, "I want to," but he held his tongue. This would keep him out of school, but that was stupid. That was just a problem for a few days. It would keep him away from Peter. That was more important. That might be a matter of life itself. But to leave Mother and Father, and above all, to leave Valentine, and become a soldier. Ender didn't like fighting. He didn't like Peter's kind, the strong against the weak, and he didn't like his own kind either, the smart against the stupid.